It was 2:47 a.m. The kind of stillness that presses against your eardrums had settled over the apartment. Every creak of the building, every distant siren seemed amplified in the dead of night. She lay in bed, eyes wide open, caught between the fading remnants of a dream and the stark reality of her new surroundings. The silence was broken when she heard someone whisper her name from inside the closet. It was a soft, breathy sound, barely audible, yet it cut through the quiet like a shard of ice. Her heart leaped into her throat, a cold wave washing over her. But she was home, alone, or at least she thought she was. The whisper had been so clear, so distinct, that it couldn't have been a dream. Could it? She strained her ears, listening for any other sound, any indication that she wasn't the only one awake in the apartment. The silence returned, heavier and more oppressive than before. Doubt began to creep in, an insidious voice suggesting that her mind was playing tricks on her. Maybe it was just the stress of the move, the unfamiliar surroundings, the loneliness that had been gnawing at her since she arrived. Reddit user @SilentMoon shared this story in 2023. The post quickly gained traction, attracting hundreds of comments from users offering advice, sharing similar experiences, or dismissing it as a figment of her imagination. But @SilentMoon was convinced that what she had heard was real, and she was determined to find out what was behind it. She documented her experiences in a series of posts, each one more unsettling than the last. She had just moved into her new apartment, a quiet place, cheap rent, and her first time living alone. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to build a life on her own terms. She had envisioned cozy nights, reading books, hosting friends for dinner, and finally feeling like she belonged somewhere. But the whisper in the night had shattered that illusion, replacing it with a sense of unease and dread. The cheap rent suddenly seemed less appealing, the quietness more sinister. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone, that something was watching her, waiting for her. The old house settled around her, a symphony of creaks and groans that were usually quite comforting. That night, however, a different sound pierced the familiar ambiance. She was lost in the pages of her book, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting dancing shadows on the walls when she heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible knock from inside her closet. It was a sound so out of place, so unnatural, that it sent a shiver down her spine despite the warmth of her blanket. Thinking it was just the old pipes acting up, a common occurrence in a house this age, she tried to dismiss it, to bury herself back in the story. She told herself it was nothing, just the house breathing. But the sound persisted, a rhythmic tapping that seemed to grow louder with each repetition. She ignored it, attempting to regain her focus, to lose herself once more in the fictional world she held in her hands, until she heard it again and again. Each knock was more insistent than the last, a deliberate summons that chipped away at her composure. Then, a whisper, barely audible, breath against the silence. "Emily." It slithered from the confines of the closet, a chilling tendril reaching out to claim her. Her blood froze in her veins, turning to ice water as the sound registered in her mind. It wasn't the pipes. It wasn't the house settling. It was the house settling. It was something else, something far more sinister. That was her name. A name only a select few knew. A name whispered in the dark. She grabbed her phone, her fingers fumbling with the cold metal as panic began to set in. She frantically checked the call log, her eyes scanning for any unfamiliar numbers, any sign that someone had been trying to reach her. No missed calls, no open windows. Every door was locked. The house was secure, yet the voice had penetrated her sanctuary, whispering her name from within the closet's depths. The whisper came again, closer this time, more insistent, laced with an unnerving familiarity. "Emily, open it. Open it." The command hung in the air. "Emily, open it." The command hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, daring her to confront the darkness that lurked behind the wooden door. The shadows danced menacingly, twisting familiar shapes into grotesque figures, fueling her fear and amplifying the chilling whisper that echoed in her mind. The chilling whisper that echoed in her mind. The unsettling sounds from the bedroom had become unbearable. A chilling whisper, a dragging sound, something just wrong. Panic seized her, a cold wave washing over her as she bolted from the room, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Sleep was impossible in that room. Not tonight, maybe not ever again. She ran out of the room and sought refuge on the living room couch, a desperate attempt to find some semblance of safety. Every shadow seemed to dance with malevolence. Every creak of the house amplified into a monstrous threat. She turned on every light she could find, bathing the room in a harsh, sterile glow. A futile attempt to ward off the darkness that had invaded her mind. Even then, she could feel the hairs on the back of her neck prickling with unease. The next morning arrived, pale and hesitant, as if afraid to fully illuminate the horrors of the night before. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and twist with a life of their own. She knew she had to face it, had to confront the source of her terror, even if every instinct screamed at her to run. With a deep breath, she steeled herself, forcing her trembling hand to reach for the closet door handle. It was cold and metallic beneath her fingers, a stark reminder of the chilling events of the previous night. Each movement was slow and deliberate, as if opening the door too quickly would unleash something even more terrifying. She opened the closet hesitantly, her eyes scanning the interior, bracing herself for the unknown. Nothing inside. At least, not in the way she expected. No monster lurking in the shadows, no grotesque figure waiting to pounce. Just clothes, shoes, and weight. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on something small and out of place. Except a small, cheap black speaker, almost comically out of place, taped precariously to the back wall. It was an old model, the kind you might find at a thrift store, its plastic casing scratched and faded. An eerie and unsettling feeling washed over her as she realized what it was. It was playing a loop, a faint, almost imperceptible sound repeating endlessly. The source of the whispers, the dragging sound, the unsettling noises that had driven her to the brink of madness. It turns out the previous tenant had set it up as a prank, a twisted, cruel joke designed to prey on the fears of the unsuspecting. Or at least, that's what she desperately wanted to believe. That's what she told herself, clinging to the rational explanation like a lifeline in a sea of madness. It had to be a prank, right? Harmless, albeit disturbing, attempt at humor. She tried to imagine the previous tenant, a mischievous grin on their face as they meticulously taped the speaker to the wall, programming it to play its insidious loop. She pictured them laughing, reveling in the fear they were inflicting. The thought made her blood boil, but it was better than the alternative. The alternative was something far more sinister, something she couldn't even begin to comprehend. But that night, sleep eluded her once more. The image of the speaker, taped to the wall, replayed in her mind like a broken record. She tossed and turned, haunted by the faint, almost imperceptible sounds that seemed to seep into her consciousness. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, she crept back into the bedroom, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached for the speaker, intending to rip it from the wall and smash it to pieces. But as her fingers brushed against the cold plastic, She noticed something that made her blood run cold. The speaker wasn't plugged in. The electrical cord, frayed and worn, dangled ominously in the darkness, disconnected from the wall. How could it have been playing? Would you stay in that apartment one more night? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more terrifying stories, if you dare.